Hi, I'm John Forde. Coming up next on the St. Paul Forum, I'll be speaking with Minnesota State Auditor Rebecca Otto. That's next on the St. Paul Forum. Welcome to the St. Paul Forum. I'm John Forde. With me today is Minnesota State Auditor Rebecca Otto. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, John.
You have been auditor for how long?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Well, it's a number question. I'm pretty sure that you can get it right.
Well, I served my first four-year term, now I'm in my second four-year term, and technically in my third year of my four-year term, so that'd be about 7 years.
Okay. And are you term limited? How many can you serve, like 4 four-year terms or 8 four-year terms?
You know, we had a state auditor in Minnesota who was there, I think, for 38 years.
Wow, when was that?
A while ago.
This is arcane history that nobody else is going to know. So, yeah.
Stafford King.
Okay.
He must have really liked his job, and but you're not term limited, and I think that's appropriate for this job. It's a technical job. It's an oversight job, and to me, it's one of the more important jobs in government.
Okay. One more thing about the auditor, and then we'll go into some bio stuff and come back to it. But a number of prominent politicians in recent history have been holders of your same office. Who?
Governor Dayton was the state auditor.
Okay.
And Arne Carlson, who's a former governor, he served in many offices, had also been the state auditor.
Okay. So it's a key position. It's one of 4 constitutional offices.
Yes, it is a key position, and the beauty of this job is you don't have the paparazzi following you around, but you get to do really, really good work in government and serve on some very important boards. And as Arne Carlson told me some years back, he said it's really a great job because you learn about all levels of government, and you really understand how they work together and how the finances work. And it is absolutely fascinating, and I do love my job. So. Okay.
The other 3 constitutional offices are Secretary of State, Attorney General, and the Governor. So it's one of an elite 4.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's start with you. How did you, you were not born in the state, were you?
No, I wasn't born in the state. However, I always tell people you can't choose where you're born.
Okay.
Okay. You're born where you're born.
Okay.
And then you find your home. So I started coming to Minnesota when I was 14 years old and going to the Boundary Waters. And loved the Boundary Waters. And when I looked at schools, when I was ready for college, I looked on all over the East Coast, and then I looked at McAllister College. And when I got to McAllister and I arrived in St. Paul, I went, this is it.
Good, okay.
So I found my home and went to college at McAllister, graduated. And anyway, so yeah, I found my home.
Okay. And you don't currently live in the city of St. Paul. I mean, this show is somewhat St. Paul-centric, but anything metro or even statewide is very relevant. You lived in St. Paul for a number of years after graduating and now live...
the Marine on St. Croix area.
Okay.
And so, but I work in St. Paul every day. And still love St. Paul. It's a great city. So eat here, play here, and so anyway, I still have my ties.
Okay, but you spent a number of your formative years right after college living in the city, correct?
Yes.
Okay, your husband sent me a number of businesses he wanted me to plug. We're not supposed to plug businesses, but where she gets her hair done, where's your favorite restaurant, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So you apparently love this town.
I really do.
Okay.
I really do. I had my first jobs here. I lived here. I was involved in the Lexington-Hammond Neighborhood Association, you know, the meetings. We used to be able to walk to restaurants, walk to, you know, this great little cafe in the morning, walk to a bakery down on, I can say Grand Avenue.
Sure.
I worked at a restaurant on Grand Avenue that's still there. I was like the day manager.
We can say that.
Yeah, I know Dixie's.
Okay.
When they first opened, I was the day manager and helped build that business, and they're still there, which is really awesome.
I met Joe Mauer there. Now, if that's not a plug for them, I don't know what it is.
Oh, there were famous people in there all the time.
All the time, okay.
So, but no, St. Paul really is a fabulous place.
And then you moved to a semi-rural location, well, fairly rural.
West Lakeland, which is, you know, 20 minutes from St. Paul, so it's not too bad. And now we're actually out in the Marine on St. Croix area, technically May Township.
Okay.
Live on a small farm. And have some horses, used to have chickens, not right now. Coyotes cleaned us out.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and but love our life and come into St. Paul every day. So except for weekends, you know.
And so professionally, when you were a teacher, as I recall.
Yes. Well, I've done many things. My
Okay.
husband and I had a business for years. And when I left the business, I
You should
went
say what it is.
painting, decorating, and historic restoration.
Okay.
I wanted to give back. And so I got a master's of education, and I taught in the public schools for 5 years. And really enjoyed that, the Mounds View schools. And then I decided I wanted to leave to go home to be home with our son, who just graduated from high school and is going to Hamlin in St.
Going to
Paul.
college in St.
I know.
Paul. Yeah.
I had volunteered, and I've always volunteered doing different things. Ramsey Elementary, I volunteered when I was at McAllister, tutoring kids in math and reading. That was so much fun. Volunteered in a local hospital in St. Paul. But anyway, yeah, that was really my first big point in my life in which I felt I could really give back.
Okay.
And yes,
And then you entered public service.
yes, that was the next big thing.
Okay. And when was that?
Oh my gosh. Very early 2000s, I was asked to, well, first just chair a levy referendum for our school district for our son's school, Forest Lake Schools. And I said, well, you know what, I'm at home, I can do that. And then, well, no, it went back to an ad hoc finance committee. Actually, it goes back, there's a lot of different things I was asked to do over time, but let's just say when I first entered office, it was school board.
Okay.
And then after that, I became a state representative. It was the Stillwater area, even though I live north of Stillwater. And now I'm state auditor. And I tell people to be very careful, because it all started when I volunteered to be the secretary of the PTO at the elementary school. It is a very slippery slope.
Okay. It just pulls you in.
Suck me in, look where I am. No, I really love public service, John.
Okay.
It has been, it's a wonderful journey. There are good things that you can do in government. You can help untangle red tape for people in government. And government should be responsive, accountable, transparent, and really offer excellent service delivery. And so that's why I enjoy my work in government, because I believe I have made a positive difference. So.
A lot of the work of being a professional politician is getting elected. And I'm just really curious about, I mean, when you first mentioned the being a state representative, I'm picturing you walking to an awful lot of houses. But when you run for auditor, it's a whole different beast. You have to use a car.
You have to use a car, and you do. You have websites, so you do a lot of this. You know, you use the internet to really assist you in communicating with people. But you do travel the state. Now, it's different than a state rep race, but you travel the state, you talk to local media, you'll go to events locally. Not a lot of parades. It's a much smaller campaign than some of the very big campaigns, but it's still, you're going to be voted by all the residents of Minnesota, the eligible voters, and so you want to make sure that they know who you are and what your vision is. And I'm not in a policy position per se. People get very excited about, can you fix healthcare? You know, can you fix my road? But I certainly can communicate to them my vision for what I want government to be. And I want, my main mission as state auditor really is to make sure that people can trust government. And we oversee local government, so cities, counties, towns, special districts, not so much the schools, but you know, if people want to know where the money was spent, you know, how much is being collected, we have all of that information in my office. And when people call with questions or concerns about maybe how something was done at the local level, we have lots of educational material for them so that if they understand their government and they feel their government is accountable and transparent, we're more likely to trust our government. And I think that's really critical in the kind of society that we live in.
There's one major point of confusion, and that is that other auditor. Can you draw the distinction between that beard? He's got a beard, right? The beard comes and goes.
He had a beard, but he shaved it.
Okay. Okay.
So
we're referring to.
Minnesota's always above average. Can I just tell you that right now? We know this, right? And then St. Paulites are like even above that. But anyway, so in Minnesota, we're always about good government. And we have the state auditor and we have the legislative auditor. The state auditor,
you,
yes, me, has to run for statewide office and oversees local government. We oversee the state's interests in local government. The legislative auditor, not me, is appointed by a legislative committee, and they oversee state government, so state programs and how things are working. So they do financial work, financial oversight, but they also can do programmatic reviews for legislators, and then they can decide if they want to change something or not.
Okay.
Okay? So we're good government in Minnesota, and we have the two different types of auditors.
Okay. And so you do cities, counties, and special jurisdictions, Metro Council, that kind of thing?
Yes, we audit the Metropolitan Council, and but it's mostly the cities of the first class, so Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, and Rochester's first class, but we're not auditing them right now. We audit most of the counties because they get a lot of state money because they're the implementation branch of state government.
How many classes are there?
I'm
asking technical questions before I'm answering. So
there's first class, second class, third class, fourth class. But anyway, yeah, it depends on their size.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of first class cities in Minnesota. They're the really big ones, right? Yeah. And then with our laws and how they apply, depending on what size you are, can impact what you have to do or not do.
The depth of the audit.
Kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether they're a gap basis or cash basis.
Okay.
You don't want.
Well, just to be a fifth-class city, we're a small municipality. We're a fifth-class city. It's almost like a little embarrassing
the 10th is
for
the
them.
worst.
Yeah.
No. But really, first class is the one you ever really talk about because that just means your population typically is over 100,000. Now Duluth has dropped.
Yeah.
But they're
about
still
85.
considered first class.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Once they're in the club, they got to
They're
fall a long way.
They're in the club.
Get
That's
back
right.
out of the club.
Right.
So this involves a lot of mathematics, but I remember you once telling me that, but it's not calculus, John. It's but it's a lot. You have a large staff.
Yeah, we have about between 110 and 115.
Okay.
We have offices around the state. Okay. Our auditors are around the state, but we have other divisions within the office, and those other divisions are housed in St. Paul, kitty corner from the Capitol, in a private building, and they do the people's work. We collect financial information from over 3,300 units of local government, and my staff analyzes it, and they compile it, and then we report it out. So we're that transparency mechanism for the taxpayers. We also certify cities like St. Paul for state aid. They get a bump in money because of the age of their infrastructure, the population, some different things. And so they have to do certain things financially in order for us to certify them. They get it. But it's a substantial amount of money for them, and it comes from the state. So we also oversee over 700 fire relief associations. We have a lot of volunteer fire departments in Minnesota. And so they have these little tiny pension funds. Most of them are tiny. And we oversee those and certify them for fire state aid. So there's all this work we do, but really at the end of the day, it's to make sure that our local governments, they're working, that they're being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, and that it's going to the right place. And if something goes wrong, John, we can conduct investigations as well.
Okay.
But in Minnesota, we are better than most states.
Okay, I was just about to go to the other Minnesota angle, but you brought up the investigations. You do not have the power to prosecute, is that correct?
No, we don't have the power to
refer.
prosecute in Minnesota, no.
Yeah.
We can subpoena, but we do not prosecute. So, right,
Okay.
if we do an investigation, by law, it has to, it gets referred to the county attorney, and then the county attorney determines if there's been a crime committed or not. Mm-hmm. We can do the forensic work on the numbers, and then they do everything else. So, yeah, it works really well.
Okay.
And when my staff does any sort of forensic work, typically it's always successful in court. Okay. We have very good people.
Your enthusiasm for the job comes through, and you mentioned how Minnesota seems to be better than the other states. I know that you are respected amongst the other auditors. You go to conventions. What do they talk about at those conventions? How can we be more like Minnesota?
Well, Minnesota has a legacy of being a good government state. Mm-hmm. We still have that legacy. We're also known for having better policies than most states. We're very smart. As you know, all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are certainly above average. So, and we are known as being that state. And so, other states, I do mingle with the other state auditors, in fact, regularly. In fact, I am currently the president of the National State Auditors Association.
Oh, okay.
So I get to do national work. What I love about that group is they're highly professional. We're all about sharing best practices and best ideas and not reinventing the wheel. And so I love the group. I chair some other committees. I also am part of the National Association of State Auditors, Comptrollers, and Treasurers. Now, that's a fun bunch.
What's the acronym for that?
NASAC. So there's NSAA and NASAC. But frankly, there's a lot of really good people around the country, and we do share our best practices, and I do enjoy my leadership work there. So I am very fond of many of those folks who work very hard every day, too, for their states.
Okay. And how long has Minnesota's fine reputation preceded you? I mean, this has been a long-term legacy.
Yeah, oh gosh, could I pin it to a year? I mean, there may have been times in our history where it was a little bit shaky, but Elmer Anderson, help me. Wendell Anderson, there we go, I had to get the right one. He really was about putting Minnesota on the map and the Minnesota Miracle. And I don't know the history of some of our laws, but I'll tell you, I judge forensic reports for a national award And when I look at some of the investigations and things that are done in other states, I always say to myself, how that wouldn't have happened in Minnesota. We have better laws. Our laws are well constructed. We're always very thoughtful about making sure oversight is built in, that reporting is built in, that we have good internal controls, and a check and a double check, trust but verify in our laws, which is fabulous. And so there's a lot of things that won't happen in Minnesota because of our thoughtful policy and laws. And our schools have always been the envy of the nation. I was a little worried the last handful of years. We've had some real financial problems as a state, which are not my fault, and I wish I could fix them. And so there have been many cuts. However, we still have that positive reputation when I'm out around the country. So that's the good news. I think people are a little scared by our climate, maybe.
Okay, yes.
And but it's a great place to live, right? So anyway, yeah.
Well, I'll ask you to venture into more dangerous territory here. I mean, you think a lot about policy, but you don't really have direct. I mean, your function is largely enforcement right now, enforcement and education.
Education.
And you were talking just a moment ago about the culture of good governance with the with both oversight and a check. And it seems to me that part of one of the reasons Minnesota government has been so good is that people are educated and they know not to stray. It seems, I bet a lot of the frauds happen because they're just money sloshing back, and in other states, and it's like, well, why didn't I grab some? And even though they know it's wrong, it's just so easy. But here, they not only know it's wrong, they know it's not that easy.
And they're constantly having to report in, like, to our office with their information. If they're not getting their stuff done, we're here for the taxpayer. It's really interesting. The U.S. State Department has sent some folks from other countries to come into Minnesota, and they meet with me, and they ask me, how do you do government in this state? I love those meetings. And, I teach them about how we accomplish transparency, all the things we put out on our website. I teach them about the reports that we do. We just issued a lobbying report, so it's what local governments in Minnesota spend on lobbying. And I had a gentleman, and I think it might have been from Argentina, who said through the interpreter, how do you keep people from doing this under the table? And we have so many different ways to hold folks accountable, to have built-in checks and double checks, that there's very, very, very little of that in Minnesota. In that lobbying report, they're lobbying for different things to happen. Well, in Minnesota, our local governments and all the folks that do the lobbying, that has to be transparent. So we have been thoughtful about our policy and making sure that it all gets reported out and there isn't that temptation, if that makes sense. In the very rare situations where something does happen, we catch it.
Good.
Yeah.
For those just joining us, this is the St. Paul Forum. I'm John Forde, and today I'm interviewing Minnesota Auditor Rebecca Otto, Minnesota State Auditor. Keep that distinction clear about legislative auditor.
Right.
Okay. Before I was asking you to dabble in the dangerous, because your job is largely policing, but there are policy things you would like to influence anyway. And I'm sure you speak to a great number of the legislators pretty often, having been a former legislator. Do you just give recommendations? Because you don't have your hands on the levers, but you're a constitutional officer and you can.
Yes.
You have a vision. What's your vision? That's really what I'm asking you.
I want good government in Minnesota, really, frankly, is what I want. And I want to help local governments do the right thing in the first place when spending taxpayer dollars, rather than just catching them doing the wrong thing. So it's a proactive agenda rather than a reactive agenda. I think it's a much better model. It's much more cost effective. It builds in more trust with the residents of Minnesota. And I would say around policy, last session I had a fairly robust agenda for our office, and it was technical things around how some of our funds are accounted for in the state accounting system, but it was very important. We weigh in on policy when it comes to local government finance in some areas, especially when it comes to our oversight. And there are times when lawmakers might come and say, can I check in with you on this, ask you how this works? That happens. Sometimes they just they use our information to, figure out local governments. The researchers use our info for legislators to help them educate about what's going on financially with local governments. So our data gets used by lots of folks. But in terms of trying to decide if tax increment financing should be a tool that local governments have, that's their job. They get elected to do that stuff. If it came to creating a new form of local government, and I noticed that there really wasn't that appropriate check and balance, let's just say that there was a little bit of oversight early on, we'd say, hey, by the way, we should probably have something in there where they're going to be reporting to us, or you know what I mean? We've also helped them clean up some of the laws around these, well, there's these special service districts and kind of the requirements around audits and reporting. It's pretty dry, but I'm not doing anything around like healthcare or, those aren't the areas that I'm going to weigh in on because it's really out of my our area. So I'm pretty careful with that. I want to be nonpartisan. I work so hard to be nonpartisan in this job, and legislators are elected to do that policy work. Governor is there as well to do that. At the federal level, you've got the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives and the President. And but if anyone ever asks me for information, I certainly provide it to help them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm still digging at you though, because I know you enjoy the nuts and bolts. You enjoy actually getting in there and actually looking at columns.
Yeah, I do.
But your job requires you to be kind of the public face and go out and meet school kids and things like that.
I love it, yes.
And tell me about that. Is it fun for you? Is it energizing for you?
Oh, let me tell you. Anytime I get to interact with school kids, I was a teacher, or college students, or I've gone, master's level, I love it. And I love getting out and explaining what it is that we do, how it impacts people's lives. And I just got invited again by the Phi Theta Kappa group to come speak to a regional conference that they have. And they always say, oh, can you make time? I'm like, I love to make time. So to me, it's spreading the gospel about the state auditor's office.
Okay, all right.
So no, I do enjoy it. And I've gotten to go, like one time I got to read to an elementary school in St. Paul to like first graders. Oh, how fun was that? So I do love to teach. It's in my blood. And I do still teach, but it's more about local government finance and helping local government officials be successful when they're handling money, providing educational materials, helping the media do informed stories about local government finance, because frankly, it can be very complicated.
And typically, commercial media has 90 seconds to tell a story that just needs to be so compressed to do that.
Right. So if I can help them create a more informed story, that helps the public, because they're really the ones that get our information out.
Now, I have let you down because we've been talking about the auditor's office so long, and we have not yet plugged the website because I can't remember it. But why don't you speak it, and they will put it up under the bar.
Absolutely. So it's www.osa.state.mn.us. Lots of information, and you can look at anything and everything that you'd like. You can contact us if you have questions. But we've worked to make it user-friendly, so I hope that people, if they go, enjoy their experience, and if not, let us know.
Okay. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I know I had queued up a couple of anecdotes, and I can't remember. Is there one that comes to mind right away that you wanted to tell about the office or its importance or running forward or anything like that? If it comes to you, we got 4.5 minutes. But I want to talk about living your values. You live on a very green piece of land, and you live a very green lifestyle.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, my husband and I built our home, starting 19 years ago. We've been there 18 years. And we wanted to do something that was different and better and that would have an impact for our son, for his future. When I say better, I mean easier on the environment and on the earth. So we're passive solar, which means we get heated by the sun in the winter. We are partially earth berm, so the earth helps to insulate part of our house. We have geothermal heating and cooling, so that's kind of a neat way to use the natural temperature or warmth from the earth to help heat your home, and we can also use it to cool. We have a wind generator that makes a good portion of our electricity. Love it. We've had it for some time. We may have to replace it at some point.
Okay.
But anyway, we've tried to incorporate and then we have very efficient appliances and lighting, and it's really served us well. And then I drive a Prius. I don't know, not plugging brands, but it's
a hybrid, sure.
It's a hybrid, and I get, I average about 50 miles per gallon in the summer, and in the winter it goes down a little bit. But I worry about the future. I worry about our air and water, and so what we've tried to do is our part. Maybe, and we've shared our house with tons of people. We've had lots of parties, open houses, and we've had architects and engineers and different folks go, I like this because it looks old. The house looks old.
You've had school kids come to your house and look at the architecture,
groups,
right?
We've had Boy Scouts, we've had college classes. We've had lots of folks come through. And because we want to show them, way back in the day, they used to build beer can houses and hay bale houses and tire houses, and they looked really strange. And, 20 years ago when we were planning the house, we said we want something that looks really normal and that anybody could live in that's really smart. So it's a smart house. And it's worked out very well for us. So,
okay.
Yes, and we were fortunate to be able to do it because not everybody can do that, but we were able to. So,
and you have worked to help cities improve their renewable energy investments?
Right. So when this was really a buzz term, get a wind generator, people wanted to see energy conservation. What our office did was a best practice review on helping them understand if they're going to make any sort of investment in saving energy or even generating it, what are the steps they should go through? Because I wanted them to be successful. You don't want horror stories and people going, well, you shouldn't invest in this because. So it's really helping them figure out what's the low-hanging fruit in terms of energy conservation, lighting audits, and then doing your lighting. That's the least expensive and really can have an impact. We did a neat study. It won a National Excellence and Accountability Award from the National State Auditors Association and has been used quite a bit. It had a lot of resources in it for them in terms of where can you find money, where can you find further technical information. But it also gave them the steps of no matter how big or small your project is, where should you start? What are the first things you should do? And if you make major investments in something, whether it's, if you did solar panels, let's say you built a LEED certified building, you have to make sure then, measure and monitor that what you put in is working. If it's not putting in as, if you're not getting the results as expected, have the person come back who installed it or built it. So again, it's good government. We love good government in Minnesota. We don't like waste, right?
Yes, it's very true. Okay, we have less than 90 seconds left, and I have two questions, so the next question your answer has to be extremely short.
Yes.
You, with such a good reputation, are other states trying to poach your top talent? Do they try and hire away?
Oh, I would kill them. No. We don't poach much. Some of them may start trying to poach like graduates of certain colleges and universities that we like, because one of them told me they're using Skype and they're reaching around the country, and I said, stay out of Minnesota and North Dakota.
I need my employees. They're excellent.
Because we need the excellent people too.
Yeah.
But nobody's tried poaching for me. They know better.
Okay. The hammer. Okay. Final question. It's summer reading time.
Yes.
Can you recommend any books?
Yes. The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich. She's a Minnesota writer. Vacation Land by Sarah Stanich. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name. It's just the neatest book. And The Roundhouse is just so moving. And finally, Lorna Landvik. If you've never read Angry Housewives Eating Bonbons, I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. So those are my recommendations.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
My guest today has been Minnesota State Auditor Rebecca Otto. This is the St. Paul Forum. We hope to see you again next week.